Hello, and welcome to Working Lunch, the Slow Chambers weekly series where we take a moment and get to know more about key leaders in our community. I'm Jim D'Antona, President and CEO of the Slow Chamber, and today you'll get to be a part of a particularly timely conversation with Tim Williams, founder and CEO of Digital West. Since 1999, Digital West has been a technology infrastructure leader on the Central Coast, leveraging the 3 cable landing stations that connect the US with the Pacific Rim countries. Digital West also serves our community by bringing broadband to rural areas, even through COVID, continuing to build fiber throughout San Luis Obispo, Ventura, and Santa Barbara counties. It's this community building that inspired Wave Broadband, a national and fiber carrier, to merge with Digital West just a few days ago. Community service is clearly at the core to Digital West, where Tim leads by example, lending his expertise to the likes of the Cuesta College Foundation Board, EVC, Central Coast Aquarium, Transitions, the Cal Poly School of Journalism, the SLO and Santa Maria Chambers, and the Pacific Coast Broadband Consortium. Today, I'm so looking forward to learning more about what this acquisition and merger means for local customers, how our regional telecom industry has changed since he has first started out, and what life has been like during the pandemic. Tim, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Jim.
Well, as we always start off, love to know, as we sit down to lunch, first foremost, where are you zooming in from today?
Oh, well, today I'm actually in a beautiful town called Genoa, Nevada. It sits in the Eastern Sierras, just below Lake Tahoe in the Carson Valley. It's an area I've been looking at for years, and just how happened this last year with all the insanity, I bought a house up here. And so working remotely has been something no problem with, but I'll even see if I can show you this real quick. I'll just show you, as you know, we've got lots of rain down in San Luis Obispo, and lots of snow have been hidden here. So I don't know if you can see that there. So it's been a beautiful week and something kind of new for me as far as living in the snow, but it's been pretty cool.
Well, so Genoa, Nevada does not sound like an easy commute. How are you? Because I see in Slow sometimes too.
Yeah, it's actually, you would think it would be a difficult, it's actually a 7-hour drive, but many people know I'm a pilot. It's actually my passion. I love that as my hobby. And so there's an airport 5 miles from here, and I fly into Santa Maria, which is where I live down in the San Luis and Santa Barbara area. And so it's a 1-hour commute. So it's actually pretty nice. I feel very fortunate to be able to do that, but I also enjoy doing it too.
That's so awesome. We saw your photo in our social media posts of you as a pilot right there, and it's amazing and really taking COVID telecommuting to a whole new level. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, it's a safer way to fly, right? There's nobody in the plane with me, so it's pretty good.
Well, that's fabulous. So I'd love to, just take a step back and talk about how you first started up and what initially intrigued you or brought you to the telecom world.
Well, I graduated from Cal Poly as a journalism student. And so, I learned the fine art of journalism and being unbiased and all that good stuff. And then the internet started to take off. And so in the mid-90s, I saw that there was this thing called the internet, and it's kind of the Wild West, and everyone's going to be utilizing it. And what a cool opportunity. And so I kind of quit the job I had at the time right after college, and took a job with a local internet provider called FixNet. They were a local dial-up access company. And I just did it to immerse myself in it. And I did, and I just loved it. I saw what the potential was. We were getting homeowners and local community members onto this internet, which was just starting to go. And I became the general manager within about 6 months, because I just swallowed it. I just absorbed it. It was great. And so after a while, I kind of saw the real need for the commercial side of this. That how do I really get these businesses what the world wants to see? We want to see the content. And so how can I focus on those content meters? And so I ended up starting Digital West really about February 1999, so almost exactly 22 years ago. And I was able to start slow, kind of did some internet connectivity for businesses in the community, a lot of web hosting. And one of my first customers was Best Western Hotels. So I housed about 500 websites for them. Some friends, Pacific Leisure Marketing in Pismo Beach, brought that account to me. And I was able to go from there. So I just kept building the company up, and still fascinated by it. Still, it was such a neat thing to be able to bring businesses, here's your email, here's your access to connecting. And there was even video conferencing back then. I mean, it was all very, rudimentary, but things were starting to take off. And another interesting part about it is just San Luis Obispo and the community we live in there. There's we have the universities, we have Cuesta, we have a lot of interest. There was a thing called SlowNet that was getting people kind of into the internet. So our community was pretty savvy to some degree, you might say. And so I just tapped into that and said, I'd like to be able to create a larger business-focused internet service provider, which is exactly what I did. And then we were able to work with partners throughout the community to keep growing our business. And we just kept going. And in about 2008, we saw the opportunity to where we could build some fiber optics. And that really was where things were going. The cable modems and the dial-up stuff with DSL was only going so fast. And so we jumped in with some partnerships in the county and started our fiber deployment right around 2009. And just continued to grow it. And we've been a pretty local, well-known local mainstay on the Central Coast for, like I said, 22 years.
Well, I think I want to dig a little into that, because is there something special about the Central Coast? Obviously you haven't been here more than a couple years, visited a lot, but didn't know those deep pieces that, telecom companies, there seemed to be a different landscape that had set up back then for the Central Coast. Can you talk a little bit about, is that something that was special to this or new?
Well, yes, there was, and you're hitting it for sure. Aside from not wanting to move, I didn't want to leave the place where I loved and called home for my college career and whatnot. We do have a very unique asset in San Luis Obispo County where we have these cable landing stations that are right outside. One in Grover Beach. There's one actually kind of at the end of Foothill. There's a cable landing station that's there in San Luis, and then one in Los Osos. And there's actually a fourth that's just on the north side of Morro Bay. And these are locations where these big fat internet cables that go across the ocean through the ocean to the Pacific Rim countries, down all the way into Mexico, across over to Guam, Hawaii, and beyond, into Japan and China. So it actually, if you think about it, San Luis Obispo is kind of that mouth, that opening where a lot of this flow of traffic comes into. Now, we don't have giant metropolis here on the Central Coast, thank goodness, but we do have these cables come through our beaches and then head north and south. And so they go off to the Silicon Valley and down to the Los Angeles area. And so because of that, we do have an unusual amount of fiber in the area, not to be used by the community, but it goes running through here. And we realized if we could be that middle company and tap into it, we could then bring that connectivity to the local businesses and residents. And that's exactly what we did. So we've been able to work with the companies like CenturyLink and Level 3 and Quest and AT&T, and we've worked with them, and it's allowed us to build out our network and then just keep growing it throughout the Central Coast.
That's pretty exciting and interesting. And I'm sure not a lot of people know about that specifically. Mm-hmm. And I know you now help lead the Pacific Coast Broadband Consortium. Can you tell us a little bit about the current state of telecom in the region? People probably hear fiber, broadband, all of those things, and maybe don't understand exactly how it all kind of fits and why it's necessary.
Sure, yeah. So the internet, those of us that have been involved with it for a long time or for a while here, we kind of know that there's almost never enough speed. There's almost never enough reliability. And the more we do things that are in the cloud, or the more we're able to work remotely, it really takes that connectivity that we have and makes it extremely important to our business and our way of life. I mean, I'm sure we've all sat at home with our families on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, and we're all watching a Netflix movie, and that little buffer comes out, and you're like, geez, well, that's because a lot of people are doing that at home that particular weekend, and you're in a neighborhood where you're probably have the cable provider, and there's just not necessarily enough. And so the Pacific Coast Broadband Consortium was developed, and it's a tri-county consortium, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura, to really put some focus on what it is that's going to take to really continue to ramp that up. If we just wait for the incumbents, if we wait for the AT&Ts and the charters to just build more, we've seen that doesn't necessarily get us there. And they're good partners to have out there, but we don't have a lot of competition. In fact, Digital West is a pretty rare find to see in many other areas. So because I'm involved not only in our region, but nationally with different fiber consortiums and groups and conventions that we'll go to, you don't find a lot of competitive players like us that are full utility, that can go out and be on the poles and underground and connect schools and hospitals and businesses. There really aren't a lot. Most places, the vast majority, you've got maybe a cable operator and maybe a good telephone company, and that's pretty much all you got. So your choice is very limited. And the Broadband Consortium's goal is, how can we do things? How can we help set policy? How can we set the direction of a community so that there is an opportunity to have more competition that will be building fiber optics and get that out there? So that consortium has been helpful. I've been involved in it since the beginning. So I do a lot of work down in Ventura and Santa Barbara for that. And I think our community, since our county population-wise is the smaller of the three, we definitely have some great assets here. And cable landing stations are one thing, but we do have, our county is actually very open to how can we help expand this. There's actually hopefully the chamber will put out a link. There's going to be a broadband summit. We're starting, I think it's on the 18th and 25th of February, somewhere on those dates. And so those conversations are happening. And I think that's going to help get us to where we can utilize existing assets. We don't have to always dig up the streets. We can work together in certain areas. And that's really what Digital West has done, has built these great relationships with the cities and the counties. So, because we're not going to compete with them, we want to work together with them. So we're almost always going after a public-private partnership to put something together that's a win for that entity and a win for Digital West. And so anyway, that's what we've been doing. And I think it's been pretty successful, and we got a lot more to do.
Well, what I would say is exactly, you brought up the point, which was interesting. There aren't a lot of Digital Wests out there. In fact, when I got here, I wasn't familiar with what a Digital West was. And it does seem to be dominated by those big multinational corps. So in talking about that, why do you think it's important that we have some choice, some options when it comes to kind of that internet telecom provider?
Well, this goes back to something that's kind of core to me and to my business partner, Jeff Buckingham. Jeff's been always in the competitive telecom industry for so long. And I'll go back into the 80s. I mean, this is when that started. It was just that the big companies become so large, they really are the monopoly, but we needed them. We needed that monopoly, because without it, who's going to run, telephone wire? Who's going to run cable wire? And so these companies come in and do that, but if there's no competition, like we see, when certain governments and things like that, if there isn't competition, it doesn't necessarily mean that the best rise to the top. And so customer service may not be as great, pricing may not be as great. And so when the telecom industry said, we can establish a competitive telecom industry, that opened up the opportunity for businesses to come along and utilize some of the existing assets, but then provide a better service, or try and provide a better service, maybe better pricing, maybe better customer interaction. And Jeff's been successful with that for decades. And that has kind of carried over into, well, fiber optics is part of that communication medium. And so we've been providing fiber optics. All the other guys can too, but they just don't seem to deploy it as much. And they're not doing it because there's no one enticed to do. Without the competition, there's no incentive for change. And so in some ways, we're zealots for competition, and we like that idea of being in there to come out here and say, listen, we know we can get this done. And if we do this and we do it well, they're probably going to compete with us, and they're much larger than us. We just need to tell the right story to say, hey, they wouldn't have done it if we didn't come and try to do some of this. And by the way, we're your local company. We want to keep working with you. So it's a balancing act. And we also work in partnership with the big carriers as well. So, but that's kind of the competitive side. Once you get competition in the market, the consumer always benefits. What's different is, I can go buy shoes at one store, buy shoes at another store. I can make the decision on that. It's hard with a utility. You can't just go to another power company or just go to another cable operator, because that's not the way that industry is laid out. So we've done a lot of hard work to make it so that we can be a competitive connectivity carrier. And so we just do fiber optics, and it's what we do well. And so we are going to continue to grow that.
Well, it makes it's so important to have a organization like yours, because like you said, AT&T, Charter, Spectrum, all of those may not focus on a county of our size. Whereas if someone else is in there playing, you're meeting a need that is definitely there, but also maybe getting them to focus a little more on doing that. So it's so wonderful to hear. And it does seem in the news this week that your merger with Wave may have been based around that idea. Can you tell us a little bit about what motivated you to explore a partnership like that, and what does it mean maybe for our community?
Sure, sure. Yes. So we were, in the whole scale, we're a pretty small company. We're 50 employees. We cover San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, now in Ventura County. We do a lot for being such a small company, but the expense of putting in fiber is the capital investment is quite large. And so we were doing it anyway. We just would do it entrepreneurially. We would working with local banks to do it. We would look with projects for within specific cities that kind of helped us get it going. And we did. We got it built up. We had over 70 miles of fiber and hundreds of buildings lit up and everything. So that was great. But what we realized, Jeff and I sat back and said, this is so great. We need to do so much more. There's so much more need to do this. We can't really fund it the same way. It's just too difficult. It's going to take forever if we do it that way. So we figured we either need to sit back and just try to make profits and slowly do it, which didn't seem like the best way. So we said, we need to get a capital partner. We need to recapitalize our business and find someone that's going to help us do this. And frankly, we didn't want to be the ones that stood in the way of that potential growth. I owned the majority of the shares and Jeff is a shareholder and we're all there, but we didn't want to say, well, we don't want to give any stock away. We're like, no, we need to do this because it makes sense. We just need to find the right partner. We need to make sure we do it with the right group. And so we started our process of how we're going to go out to recapitalize our business. And right when we went to market, it was February 28th, right at the end of February, we're out and we're like, okay, world, who's interested in what Digital West Kit has and how you can help us? And then 2 weeks later, the country shuts down with COVID. And we're just like, oh my goodness, we might have hit this at the absolute worst time. And but we persevered and we communicated with the different entities that were interested in possibly investing in Digital West. Some of them wanted to buy us, some of them wanted to invest in us and buy some of the stock. But what we found was they were also busy dealing with their existing portfolio companies because of COVID. We didn't get as many people that come in and check though. But we persevered. And what it came down to was we had a couple of 2 or 3 really good opportunities. And there was this company, Wave, who we had actually known for a while. We'd been talking with them. They had deployed fiber down in Santa Maria, but not really deployed it. They didn't really use much for business. It was for cellular stuff. And we talked with some people at Wave and really loved them. They're just a great team. And what's cool about Wave is I talked about the competitive side of what we do, and we're kind of zealots for that. Really, every market that Wave is in, it's the same scenario. They've got an AT&T, a Verizon, a Frontier, or a Charter, or a Cox that they're competing with that isn't doing what the community needs, and Wave is in there doing it. So we know that they're just a bigger version of us trying to do what we think is the right thing. And so the more we started talking with Wave, the more they said, we're not going to come in and change you. We want you to keep doing what you do well. In fact, don't change a thing. We don't want to break anything. We want to try to help you and support you. In fact, we're not changing your name. Your staff is busy. We know you've got some openings for more people. Let's do that. And by the way, let's fund these projects that you have, these other projects to build more fiber. And so in the end, what Jeff always says, the coolest thing is we're just going to build a lot more fiber. And that's really what's neat. Jeff and I are still there running the show here regionally. And it really was a great opportunity, and the partnership we couldn't be happier about.
That's great to hear. And so we will still see the Digital West that engages with the community. We'll still see Jeff. We'll still see Mike. We'll see the team working with us for customers who have so enjoyed being a part of Digital West.
You will. Yes, we're always there. You can't stop us from supporting the chamber. I mean, there's just no way that would ever happen because we're obviously big fans. And Jeff's, I think, on the board right now, still with the chamber, and I'm on the chamber board right now too with Santa Maria. And so you're going to continue to see that more involvement regionally because we are expanding that footprint. As I said, down into Ventura County, we're definitely strong in Santa Barbara. And so And the troubling thing is too, is we don't do a lot of marketing per se from a traditional marketing, but we're usually involved in lots of events. And so unfortunately this last year, we really haven't been out there because the events aren't happening. And so, we haven't been able to support the golf tournaments and the bowl-a-thons and all those things. And we're really looking forward to that, hopefully soon reopening. But, with COVID, things have changed quite a bit. And I think we're actually adapting pretty well as a society.
I think it's great. But I guess the only big question would be was there something in the contract that prohibits Jeff and the cheetah or Dottie the cow from being a part of anything?
You know what? Jeff just sent the leadership at Wave. We've had several meetings this week. The picture of Dottie out in front of the mixer showcase not Dottie, sorry, it was Daisy the cow painted up like a cheetah. And so we showed them that, and I think they got a pretty big laugh at it. They said, no, whatever's working for you guys, just keep doing it. So I think we'll continue. You'll still see Jeff and Dottie and the cheetah.
That's awesome. That's so fun. Well, as you were starting to talk about there before I took us off on a sidetrack there, was COVID has really shown us like how a strong, vital internet connection is for people to learn, work from home. Are there new innovations, efforts currently underway to kind of look at how we're doing work? What do you see into the future of the industry?
Yeah, this has been an instant looking glass as to how well were we prepared? What kind of tools do we have to do this? Can we flip the switch and work from home like this? Frankly, I'm amazed at how well we've all done. I think I would say 90% of the world didn't know the word Zoom prior to March of last year. And Zoom, WebEx, all these companies in Microsoft Teams did a phenomenal job of sort of just being prepared and ready to take their industry that just, I'm sure it went up hundreds fold. Video conferencing has been around for, like, as I said, back when I worked at Kinko's, prior to the internet being there, you could go to Kinko's and do video conferencing, and it costs a lot of money. It just never really caught on. It was one of those things that people were a little bit, apprehensive of. I don't think that's a problem anymore. I think one thing that's a silver lining of this is we have learned that if a meeting is needed and my day is packed, I think I can get quite a bit done. It's not the same, but I can get quite a bit done. It's not a substitute, but it definitely will help get something to the next level if we need to. So I think that adaptation has been pretty critical. If nothing else though, being that zealot and that person that's been talking about how broadband is so important. This was truly a realization of the world that says, yeah, that really is true. That we need this reliable connectivity, whether it's at home or our businesses that we have lots of people in. It's not I don't think we'll ever take that for granted again. And I think that's a real big, at least I'm in the industry, so it's a big plus for me, but just as a technology enthusiast, I'm really happy to see that everyone recognizes that this is an important thing, because whatever the next thing is, hopefully it's not a pandemic or whatever, it is important that we're able to have that communication and still be able to congregate, and do what we need to do. So it's been, as far as you ask for a new tool or something like that, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I know that people are trying to make it so that bands that can literally play music together in different rooms, and it's hard with all the delays and things, but I think they're trying to figure that out. So interesting stuff.
I will agree 100% with what you said. The idea that 90% of the world didn't know what a Zoom was. Every meeting had to be in person. We maybe did a FaceTime or something, but other than that, it was pretty much, and it was amazing to see how organizations like yours and all of these other companies put together to allow the world to meet in a hot second. Yeah. And we're ready to do it. So it was truly amazing, and it's really made a difference to how maybe we do business. And is that one of the silver linings maybe that comes out of the pandemic for you guys, or for other, do you have silver linings out there?
Yeah, I think, we offered business telephone services that it actually has, it's called Metro Voice, and it has Zoom built into it. So, that was something that Jeff has talked about, I know, in different groups. We had that prior to the pandemic, so it was really great. In fact, unfortunately, we have lost customers, and we have lost community members in their businesses because of all this, which just sucks. Thankfully, we were able to just give that service to some businesses that were struggling, say, hey, if you don't have the video conferencing portion of this, here, we're going to give it to you for free. So go ahead and use it for a while. And I think that was helpful. And the fact that we've just been, our business is considered an essential business. So our team has been working we haven't lost a person, and they're all had been out working consistently. So, we've had to go out and open up, connect new businesses, add more phone lines to some, and get things going. And so thankfully, I think our community kind of pulling it together as a whole, and all the stuff that everyone's been doing, like the chamber in the educational side of things, and like Cal Poly would say, how can we help to get involved? We worked with the city when they needed to put a call center together. They called it a Sunday, and by Monday morning, they had 10 phone lines and everything set up. And we all work together on that kind of stuff. And I think that's been really helpful, which is just kind of what it's like for us to live in St. Louis.
Yeah, it does seem special to the community for sure. So thinking about, just as we were getting here towards the end of the interview, is there something you've learned in the past few months that will stick with you into the future, that will help maybe your business or personally?
Yeah, well, I think that the ability for us, for our people in our lives, to make a switch with something that was so transformative. I'm in Rotary with you, Jim, and I'm in a Rotary club up here in this area as well. Rotary clubs moved to virtual. Not all of them, but 90% of them did. And these are groups of people that get together to do good, to see each other and be part of a community. And just like other organizations like Elks and whatnot, they do these service clubs. And we just kind of, to use the word, pivot, we all kind of pivoted. And I think that our openness to do so was strengthening. And I like that they were able to see that. And it wasn't really a technology thing so much as is this comfortable? Is this even going to work? Can I actually relate to these people in my lives over a screen? And it's not the best, but we were able to do that. And I think that it will change the way that business is done. It might make it so that certain meetings happen a little sooner. It might mean that we're not going to be canceling things. It may mean less cars on the road, which I know, that's a climate control goal for many cities. And so I think probably what we'll get out of this, though, is a bit of a hybrid out of all these things, to say, I know what I do like with my life, and I like lots of people in it, and I like to be able to get together. I want to get back to Good Morning Slow and have coffee with Pierre Rademacher and listen to the jokes that are going on. I want to see that. And in the absence of that, I'm going to make the best I can and continue to help my business and those businesses around me by doing what we've always done in Slow County, which is support those. I always sometimes feel, I've been in Slow for 30 years. I feel like it's a bit of an island because of where we are. But the only way to survive in an island like this is to help our brothers and sisters. And so I think that that's not gone away in this. If anything, it may have increased. And so I like to see that continue.
I love it. I think that's a great space to kind of end on. And want to ask just a couple of final questions. If people want to look more into the work that Digital West is doing, what's the best place for them to go to investigate that?
Well, probably our website. I don't know. Jeff does a lot of the marketing side of things. I would say digitalwest.com would be one spot to go. We're fairly active on Facebook. So if you want to click over from Facebook Live over to a Digital West link, we're there. And frankly, if you don't have my phone number or Jeff's phone number or email address, I'd be really surprised. But you can always call and reach out to me or to Jeff, and I'll put my phone number up on my cell number up on Facebook Live, and so it'll be there. But if you have questions, please reach out. I mean, we're trying to communicate with everybody. That's what we always want to do. And the most important thing we're trying to say is we're still here. This is not really changing much at all. We just have a rich uncle that's going to help us build more fiber, and that's what's exciting.
That's super exciting for our community, because I couldn't imagine what the community would look like if you weren't here doing that work. And how would we, from an economic perspective, move forward? So really appreciate all of that. What are you looking forward to this weekend? We always end on this question.
Oh, well, you saw the snow. I'm going snowboarding on Sunday. We've had a great snowfall this whole week, which has just been beautiful. So Sunday I'm doing that. It's always a good day. It's not as crowded as Saturday. And tomorrow I've got a kind of a personal zenny moment. I've got a friend named Henry Lane, who's from San Luis Obispo area. He passed away about a month and a half ago. Really good guy. He was the chair of the YMCA for a number of years. He was the CEO of Dioptics. And I committed to myself that he's got 3 wonderful boys, and I have sort of compiled some pictures and things. So I'm going to do a memorial for Henry tomorrow with coffee. That's my tomorrow's Zen I'm going to have, and then Sunday I'll go snowboarding. So that's what I've got going on.
It sounds pretty awesome, and a great perspective on cable and fiber is you've been doing this from the Eastern Sierras, and your your video feed is amazing, better than probably some of the folks I've been talking to in other communities. So beautifully job, and a beautiful area. Looking forward to seeing some pictures of you on the snow, out on the snow.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, your open invitation. Come up. I've got space for you.
I like that. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Tim, for being with us today. Really appreciate the time. I know you're super busy, especially right now, but glad we were able to share a little bit of this information on what the future Digital West looks like.
Me too. Thank you. And when softball starts again, you got to come out and start hitting the ball.
I will start stretching now so I don't pull any hamstrings.
Okay, good.
That'll be great. So for all of you with it, thank you so much for eating lunch with us. We hope to see you next week when we'll be joined by the new state senator, John Laird, who will be joining us for some questions. If you have an idea for a future working lunch guest or someone you want to learn more about, send us an email at slowchamber@slowchamber.org. Thanks for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay healthy and safe out there.